My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I built a life in Denver, Colorado, working as a real estate agent for 30 years, helping families find their dream homes. I never imagined that on Valentine's Day, my own daughter would treat me like a stranger, only to come crawling back when she discovered I had inherited $100 million. It started on February 14th, a day that should have been about love and family. I had prepared a special dinner at my modest townhouse in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, just a simple meal I thought we could share. My daughter lived only 20 minutes away with her husband and 2 children, but getting her to visit had become increasingly difficult over the past few years. I called her that morning, excited about our plans. "Happy Valentine's Day, sweetheart. Are you still coming for dinner tonight?" "Oh, Mom," she said with that familiar tone of annoyance. "I completely forgot. We have plans with Brad's family tonight. His mother is hosting this elaborate dinner party." My heart sank. "But we planned this weeks ago. I've already prepared everything." "I know, but Brad's family is really important for his career. His father knows people in the investment firm where Brad works. We can't just skip it." "What about next weekend then?" "We're going skiing in Aspen with the Johnsons. Brad's boss invited us." Brad's career, Brad's boss, Brad's family. Everything in my daughter's life revolved around her husband's social climbing and networking. I had watched her transform from the sweet, caring girl I raised into someone I barely recognized. "I understand," I said quietly, though I didn't understand at all. "Great. Oh, and Mom, can you babysit the kids next Tuesday? We have this important charity gala and the usual sitter canceled." There it was. The only time she needed me was when she required free childcare. I was good enough to watch her children, but not important enough to spend Valentine's Day with. "Of course," I replied automatically. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by the ingredients for a dinner that would now go uneaten. The loneliness hit me like a physical blow. My husband had passed away 5 years ago from cancer, and since then, my daughter had become increasingly distant. She was busy building her new life in the wealthy part of town, trying to fit in with people who had money and status. I spent Valentine's Day alone, watching romantic comedies and eating ice cream directly from the container. But what hurt most wasn't the canceled dinner. It was the realization that I had become invisible to my own child. She saw me as a convenience, someone to call when she needed something, but not someone worth spending time with. The next few days followed the same pattern. She called Tuesday morning. "Mom, about tonight, can you pick up the kids from school and keep them until about 11? The gala is running later than expected." 11 at night? That's quite late for a charity event. "It's networking, Mom. You wouldn't understand. These events are crucial for Brad's career advancement." I wouldn't understand, as if 30 years of building relationships in real estate hadn't taught me about networking and professional relationships. But I bit my tongue and agreed to babysit. When I picked up my grandchildren from their expensive private school, they were excited to see me. 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Michael still loved their grandmother, even if their mother had forgotten how to. "Grandma, Mom said you're making us dinner and we can watch movies." "That's right, sweetheart. What would you like to eat? Can we have mac and cheese?" Mom never makes it because she says it's not healthy. I made them mac and cheese, and we built a fort in the living room while watching Disney movies. These children were starving for simple pleasures, for someone to just be present with them without worrying about appearances or social status. My daughter arrived at 11:30 p.m., slightly drunk from the gala. "Thanks, Mom. You're a lifesaver." "Oh, can you watch them this Saturday too? We're going to Brad's colleagues' wine tasting in Napa Valley." "Actually, I was hoping we could spend some family time together this weekend." She laughed, a harsh sound. "Mom, we're not really the family time type anymore. The kids have activities, Brad has golf, and I have my book club with the other wives." "And when did we stop being the family time type?" "Since I grew up and got a real life," she said, immediately looking like she regretted the words. "I mean, since we got busy with adult responsibilities." But the damage was done. She saw my life as somehow less real, less important than hers. I was just the woman who had raised her, sacrificed for her education, worked 2 jobs to pay for her college, and was now convenient for free childcare. After she left with the children, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in my empty house. The silence was deafening. When had I become so insignificant in my daughter's life? When had love been replaced by convenience? I thought about calling my sister in Phoenix, but it was past midnight. Instead, I found myself looking through old photo albums, pictures of my daughter as a baby, as a toddler taking her first steps, as a kindergartner on her first day of school. In every photo, she was looking at me with such love and trust. Somewhere along the way, that love had been replaced by embarrassment. She was ashamed of my modest house, my middle-class lifestyle, my lack of sophisticated social connections. She wanted a mother who fit into her new world of charity galas and wine tastings and European vacations. The irony was heartbreaking. I had worked so hard to give her opportunities I never had, to pay for the best education, to ensure she could pursue any dream. And my success in raising her had led to her rejecting the life I represented. But what she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that my circumstances were about to change dramatically. 3 days after that lonely Valentine's Day, I received a call that would alter everything. My great-aunt Millicent, whom I barely knew, had passed away at 97 in her mansion in Connecticut. "Ms. Patterson, this is Harrison Webb from Webb, Morrison & Associates in Hartford. I'm handling the estate of Millicent Patterson. You are listed as her sole beneficiary. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I barely knew my great-aunt." "No mistake, ma'am. She left very specific instructions. Her entire estate, including liquid assets, real estate holdings, and investment portfolios, comes to approximately $100 million. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. $100 million. I had been living paycheck to paycheck, driving a 10-year-old Honda, shopping at discount stores, while sitting on an inheritance that would make me one of the wealthiest women in Denver. She included a letter for you," the lawyer continued. "She writes that she followed your life from afar and was impressed by your character and the way you raised your daughter despite limited resources. She felt you deserved a chance to enjoy life without financial worries." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. My great-aunt, a woman I had met perhaps 3 times in my life, had been watching me. She had seen my struggles, my sacrifices, my dedication to family, and she had chosen to reward that with a fortune beyond my wildest dreams. But the inheritance came with a revelation that would test my relationship with my daughter like never before. For the first time in years, I would have power. I would have choices. And my daughter, who had treated me as an inconvenience, was about to discover just how much her mother was truly worth. The question was, what would I do with this newfound wealth and power? Would I use it to buy my daughter's attention back? Would I flaunt it to teach her a lesson about respecting family? Or would I find a way to heal our broken relationship? As I looked at those childhood photos one more time, I made a decision. My daughter had ignored me on Valentine's Day because she saw no value in my presence. She was about to learn that value comes in many forms, and sometimes the people we take for granted are the ones who hold the greatest surprises. The inheritance was mine, but how I chose to reveal it, and what I demanded in return, would determine whether my relationship with my daughter could be salvaged or if it was too late for genuine love to overcome years of neglect and dismissal. The next few weeks passed in a surreal haze. I met with lawyers, financial advisors, and accountants, all while maintaining my normal routine. I continued working at the real estate office, driving my old Honda, shopping at the same grocery stores. But internally, everything had changed. I was no longer the struggling single mother my daughter pitied and ignored. I was a woman with options, with power, with the ability to change not just my life, but the lives of everyone around me. My daughter continued her pattern of using me for babysitting while excluding me from her real life. She called every few days with requests. Could I pick up the kids from soccer practice? Could I watch them while she went to the spa with her friends? Could I help with carpool duty because her Range Rover was getting detailed? Each request came without genuine conversation, without asking about my life or well-being. I was a service provider, not a mother. But now I observed these interactions with new eyes, taking notes, planning. "Mom, I need a huge favor," she called on a Thursday morning. "Brad's company is having this major client dinner on Saturday, and I need someone to watch Emma and Michael. The usual sitter is sick, and I'm desperate." "What time?" I asked, as I always did. 6 to midnight, probably. It's at the Four Seasons downtown. Very fancy. Brad's wearing his new Armani suit. She always mentioned these details. The expensive restaurants, the designer clothes, the luxury hotels. I think she enjoyed highlighting the gap between her lifestyle and mine. What she didn't know was that I could now afford 10 Armani suits without blinking. Of course, I'll watch them. You're amazing, Mom. I don't know what I'd do without you. Oh, and could you maybe order pizza for them? I left some cash on the counter, but not much. Not much cash. From a woman whose husband made 6 figures and who spent more on handbags than I used to make in a month. But she assumed I was still struggling, still grateful for her leftover bills to cover my grandchildren's dinner. Saturday evening arrived, and I picked up Emma and Michael from their sprawling house in Cherry Hills Village. The neighborhood screamed wealth, perfectly manicured lawns, circular driveways, houses that looked like European estates. My daughter had achieved the life she wanted, the life that required distancing herself from her humble origins. "Grandma!" Emma ran to hug me. "Are we having pizza again?" "Actually, I thought we might try something different tonight. How do you feel about going to a nice restaurant?" "Really? Mom never takes us to restaurants unless it's for her friends." The innocence of that statement hit me hard. My grandchildren were living in luxury but starving for genuine attention and experiences. Their parents were too busy climbing social ladders to notice what their children actually needed. I took them to a family steakhouse downtown, nothing too fancy, just a place where kids could be kids. We ordered milkshakes and burgers, and they told me about school, their friends, their dreams. Emma wanted to be a veterinarian. Michael loved building with Legos and thought he might become an architect. "Does Mom know about your dreams?" I asked gently. Emma shrugged. "She's always busy talking to Mrs. Johnson about charity stuff or planning parties." "And Dad?" "Dad works a lot. When he's home, he's usually on his phone or watching the news." These children were emotionally neglected, passed between nannies and grandmothers while their parents pursued status and wealth. They had everything money could buy, but none of the things that truly mattered: time, attention, unconditional love. After dinner, we went to the arcade attached to the restaurant. I watched my grandchildren laugh and play, truly carefree for the first time I had seen in months. Other families were there too, parents actually engaging with their children instead of checking phones or networking. "Grandma, this is the best night ever," Michael said, hugging my waist. "Why don't we do this more often?" Emma asked. "Because your mother only calls me when she needs free babysitting," I thought. "Because she's ashamed of who I am and where I come from. Because she's forgotten that family means more than social status." But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, "Maybe we can start doing it more often." When my daughter came to pick them up at my house later that night, she was glowing from her evening at the Four Seasons. "How was the dinner?" I asked. "Incredible. The mayor was there and several city council members. Brad made some amazing connections. This could really open doors for his promotion to senior partner." "And how are the children?" "What do you mean? They're fine. They love spending time with you." But she hadn't asked them about their evening. She hadn't noticed their excitement about the restaurant or the arcade. She was so focused on her own social climbing that her children's happiness was an afterthought. "Mom, I have to ask you something," she said, lowering her voice. "Emma mentioned you took them to a restaurant tonight. I left money for pizza. Restaurants are expensive, and I know money is tight for you." There it was, the assumption that I couldn't afford to treat my own grandchildren to dinner, the patronizing concern that revealed how little she knew about my actual situation. "I managed," I said simply. "I just worry about you overspending. I know Dad's life insurance wasn't much, and your real estate job, well, it's not exactly lucrative." She had no idea that my not exactly lucrative career had actually been quite successful. I had built a solid client base over 3 decades, owned my home outright, and had substantial savings even before the inheritance. But she saw only what she wanted to see: a mother who needed her pity and occasional financial scraps. "I appreciate your concern," I said, biting back the urge to tell her exactly how financially secure I was. After she left with the children, I sat down with my laptop and began researching. If my daughter valued wealth and status above family, perhaps it was time to show her what real wealth looked like. But I wouldn't reveal my inheritance directly. Instead, I would let her discover it gradually, organically, in a way that would force her to confront her own priorities. I started by making some changes to my lifestyle. Nothing dramatic at first, just subtle upgrades that an observant daughter might notice. I traded my 10-year-old Honda for a new Mercedes sedan. Not the most expensive model, but clean, sophisticated, and undeniably luxurious. I hired a personal shopper and updated my wardrobe. Gone were the discount store outfits and clearance rack finds. In their place, I acquired well-tailored clothing from upscale boutiques. Nothing flashy or obvious, just the kind of quiet elegance that spoke of understated wealth. I began eating at better restaurants, getting regular spa treatments, having my hair done at an exclusive salon. I was still the same person inside, but outwardly, I was transforming into someone my daughter might actually want to be seen with. The first sign that she noticed came 3 weeks later. "Mom, is that a new car?" she asked when I picked up the children for another babysitting session. "Yes, I decided it was time for an upgrade." She walked around the Mercedes, clearly puzzled. "This must have cost... how did you..." "I've been saving," I said, which was technically true. "But this is a really expensive car. Are you sure you can afford the payments?" "I'm managing just fine." I could see the wheels turning in her head. Where was her struggling mother getting money for luxury cars? She was used to pitying me, to feeling superior about her wealth compared to my modest lifestyle. The new car disrupted that narrative. Over the following weeks, I continued making subtle changes. I bought a beautiful piece of art for my living room. I had my kitchen renovated with high-end appliances. I started wearing jewelry that caught the light and drew attention. My daughter's confusion grew with each visit. "Mom, where are you getting the money for all these improvements?" "I told you I've been saving, and business has been good lately. But real estate agents don't make this kind of money in Denver, not unless they're selling multi-million-dollar properties. Maybe you don't know as much about my career as you think." The truth was starting to dawn on her that she had completely underestimated her mother's financial situation. But she still had no idea about the inheritance. She was beginning to see me differently, though, not as the struggling woman who needed her charity, but as someone with mysterious resources and capabilities. The dynamic between us started to shift. She began asking more questions about my life, my work, my financial strategies. For the first time in years, she seemed genuinely curious about who I was beyond her convenient babysitter. But I wasn't ready to reveal everything yet. I wanted her to work for the truth, to realize that she had been taking me for granted, to understand that respect and love couldn't be bought, but they could certainly be lost through neglect and dismissal. The real test would come soon. I was planning something that would force her to confront everything she thought she knew about family, loyalty, and the true meaning of wealth. By April, my daughter's curiosity had evolved into something closer to obsession. She began showing up unannounced, ostensibly to check on me, but really to investigate my mysterious transformation. The woman who had ignored me on Valentine's Day was now calling twice a week, fishing for information about my sudden prosperity. "Mom, I drove by the house yesterday and saw contractors leaving. What kind of work are you having done?" "Just some updates. The bathrooms needed modernizing. Full bathroom renovations cost tens of thousands of dollars. And last week I noticed you were wearing that beautiful diamond bracelet. Where did that come from?" I touched the bracelet thoughtfully. It was one of many pieces I had purchased in the past month, each one carefully chosen to signal wealth without being ostentatious. "It was a gift," I said, which was true. I had gifted it to myself. "From whom?" "A friend." The vague answer clearly frustrated her. She was used to knowing everything about my simple, predictable life. Now I had secrets, resources, and apparently friends wealthy enough to give expensive jewelry. "What friend? I thought you mostly kept to yourself since Dad died." "I've been getting out more lately, meeting new people." This was also true. My new financial status had opened doors to social circles I never knew existed. I had been invited to charity luncheons, gallery openings, and private dinners with Denver's elite. Many of these people had known my great-aunt Millicent and welcomed me warmly once word spread about my inheritance. But my daughter didn't know any of this. She only saw the effects: the expensive clothes, the luxury car, the home improvements, the mysterious social life that didn't include her. "Mom, I'm worried about you. This doesn't seem like you. Are you sure you're making good financial decisions? Maybe you should talk to Brad about investment strategies." There it was, the assumption that her husband knew better than I did about managing money. The same woman who had dismissed my intelligence and capabilities was now offering to have her husband manage my mysterious wealth. "I have my own financial advisors now," I said calmly. "You have advisors? Plural? Wealth management requires a team of professionals. The word wealth hung in the air between us. I had never used that word to describe my situation before. Even when I was comfortable financially, I had always been modest about money, never wanting to seem boastful or materialistic. But now I was testing the waters, seeing how she would react to the idea that her mother might actually be wealthy rather than struggling. Wealth management, she repeated. Mom, exactly how much money are we talking about here? Enough to live comfortably. But where did it come from? You were always so careful about money, always worried about expenses. Remember when you wouldn't let me buy that expensive prom dress because it was too much? I did remember. I had worked overtime for weeks to afford a beautiful but reasonably priced dress that my daughter had initially complained about. She had wanted the most expensive option in the store, not because she loved it, but because her friends would recognize the designer label. Sometimes circumstances change, I said. What circumstances? Did you win the lottery? Inherit money from someone? Get some kind of settlement? She was getting warmer with the inheritance guess, but I wasn't ready to confirm anything. I wanted her to understand the magnitude of her neglect before I revealed the magnitude of my new situation. I'd rather not discuss the details right now. My reluctance to share information was driving her crazy. For the first time in years, she was genuinely interested in my life, but only because she suspected I might be wealthy. Her newfound attention felt hollow and opportunistic. The shift in her behavior became more pronounced over the following weeks. Suddenly, she had time for coffee dates and lunch meetings. She invited me to join her book club, introduced me to her wealthy friends, and even suggested we take a mother-daughter trip together. I've been thinking we should spend more quality time together, she announced during one of her increasingly frequent visits. Maybe we could go to that new spa resort in Vail for a long weekend. That sounds expensive. Oh, don't worry about the cost. I mean, unless you want to pay for it, since you seem to be doing so well financially lately. There it was, the real motivation behind her sudden interest in bonding. She wanted to test my financial limits while positioning herself to benefit from whatever resources I might have. I'll consider it, I said. But privately, I was planning something much more revealing than a spa weekend. I had decided it was time to host an event that would showcase my true financial status and force my daughter to confront her own behavior. I began planning an elaborate dinner party at my home for late May. Not just any dinner party, but the kind of sophisticated gathering that would attract Denver's social elite. I hired a renowned catering company, brought in a professional event planner, and sent invitations to the most influential people in the city. The guest list included the mayor, several city council members, prominent business leaders, and yes, the very people my daughter had been trying to impress at her husband's work functions. But she didn't know about the party yet. I also made one more significant purchase that would send an unmistakable message about my financial status. I bought a vacation home in Aspen. Not a modest condo, but a luxurious mountain estate with panoramic views and every amenity imaginable. The Aspen purchase would serve multiple purposes. It would demonstrate that I had serious wealth, not just comfortable savings. It would also give me a retreat where I could entertain my new social circle and potentially host my grandchildren for vacations that would show them a different way of living. When the real estate transaction made the local news, as high-end Aspen purchases often do, my daughter saw it online. She called me immediately, her voice tight with shock and confusion. Mom, there's an article in the Denver Post about luxury real estate sales. It mentions a Patricia Patterson purchasing a $12 million estate in Aspen. That's not you, is it? I paused, letting the silence stretch between us. This was the moment I had been building toward. The moment when she would realize that her struggling, unsophisticated mother had not only been hiding significant wealth, but had just made a purchase that dwarfed her own family's annual income. It is me, I said simply. $12 million? Mom, what the hell is going on? Where did you get $12 million? Language, dear. Don't language me. You bought a $12 million house. Yesterday, you were my mother who needed help ordering pizza for the grandkids. Yesterday, you assumed I needed help. I never actually said I did. The reality was crashing down on her. Every patronizing comment about my finances, every assumption about my limitations, every dismissive attitude about my capabilities, All of it was being recontextualized in light of my Aspen purchase. I need to see you. Right now. We need to talk about this. I'm busy today. How about tomorrow afternoon? Busy with what? I'm meeting with my interior designer about furnishing the Aspen house. I could practically hear her hyperventilating on the other end of the line. Her mother, whom she had been ignoring and taking for granted, was casually discussing interior designers and multi-million-dollar real estate purchases. This is insane. I'm coming over tonight whether you're available or not. But I had other plans for that evening. I was attending a gallery opening with some of my new friends from Denver's cultural community, people who appreciated art, conversation, and genuine relationships rather than just business networking and social climbing. I won't be home tonight. I'm going to an art gallery opening. Since when do you go to gallery openings? Since I started expanding my social circle. After we hung up, I smiled to myself. My daughter was finally paying attention to me, finally asking questions about my life and interests. Unfortunately, her motivation was all wrong. She wasn't interested in me as a person. She was interested in me as a financial resource she had miscalculated. But the game wasn't over yet. I had one more card to play, one final revelation that would force her to confront not just my wealth, but her own values and priorities. The dinner party I was planning would be that revelation. And the guest list would include people who could change her husband's career prospects forever. The question was, would she humble herself enough to deserve an invitation? The gallery opening that night was everything I had hoped it would be. I moved through the elegant space in my new designer dress, sipping champagne and discussing art with people who appreciated both beauty and substance. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Surrounded by individuals who valued intelligence and conversation over gossip and social positioning. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, a prominent philanthropist and art collector, approached me near a stunning abstract painting. "Patricia, I'm so glad you could make it tonight. Millicent spoke of you often before she passed. She said you had excellent taste and a good heart. She was very kind to remember me in her will," I replied, still amazed by my great-aunt's generosity. Kindness had nothing to do with it. Millicent was shrewd about people. She saw something in you that impressed her, and frankly, after meeting you tonight, I can see why. Dr. Hartwell introduced me to several other influential Denver residents, including the director of the Art Museum, a federal judge, and the CEO of the city's largest foundation. These were people my daughter had been desperately trying to meet through her husband's work connections, and here I was, naturally welcomed into their circle. Around 9 o'clock, my phone started buzzing with calls from my daughter. I ignored them, focusing instead on a fascinating conversation about supporting emerging artists with the museum director. When I finally arrived home around 11, my daughter's car was in my driveway. She was sitting on my front steps, clearly having waited for hours. "Where have you been?" she demanded, standing up as I approached. "I told you, at a gallery opening." "Until 11 o'clock? Mom, what is happening to you? This isn't like you at all." I unlocked my front door and gestured for her to follow me inside. "Maybe you don't know what I'm actually like. Maybe you've been so busy with your own life that you stopped paying attention to mine." She followed me into the living room, looking around with new eyes at the expensive art, the renovated space, the subtle signs of wealth that had been accumulating over the past few months. "Mom, I need you to be honest with me. Where did this money come from? Are you in some kind of trouble? Are you doing something illegal?" I laughed, genuinely amused by her assumption that my wealth must be illicit. "Do I look like a criminal to you? You look like someone I don't recognize anymore." I poured myself a glass of wine from a bottle that cost more than she used to spend on groceries in a week. "Maybe that's because you stopped really looking at me years ago. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you asked me about my hopes, my dreams, my interests? When was the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about you needing something from me?" She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her mental calculations working. "Okay, maybe I've been busy, but this is different. You're talking about millions of dollars. People don't just suddenly have millions of dollars. Actually, sometimes they do. Sometimes life surprises you." I decided it was time to give her some concrete information, though not the full story yet. I inherited money, yes, from a relative who felt I deserved financial security. How much money? Enough to buy houses in Aspen, apparently. But who? We don't have any wealthy relatives. Grandma and Grandpa died with almost nothing. Great Aunt Millicent, Dad's aunt, she was quite successful in her investments. My daughter's face went blank. Great Aunt Millicent? The old lady from Connecticut who sent Christmas cards? That old lady was worth over $100 million. The wine glass I was holding might as well have been a bomb for the impact those words had. My daughter literally staggered backward, gripping the arm of my new Italian leather sofa for support. $100 million? Give or take a few million, yes. And she left it all to you? She did. The silence that followed was profound. I watched my daughter process this information, seeing her mentally recalculate everything she thought she knew about our family, about me, about her own financial standing in comparison. When did you find out? She asked quietly. 3 days after Valentine's Day. Another silence. She was remembering Valentine's Day, remembering how she had dismissed me for Brad's family dinner, how she had treated me like an inconvenience rather than her mother. 3 days after, she repeated. You've known for months that you're worth $100 million, and you didn't tell me? You didn't seem particularly interested in my life at the time. But I'm your daughter. Yes, you are. You're my daughter who forgot to spend Valentine's Day with me because Brad's career was more important. You're my daughter who calls me only when you need free babysitting. You're my daughter who assumes I can't afford to take my own grandchildren to dinner. Each statement hit her like a physical blow. She sank into the sofa, her face pale. Mom, I didn't realize. You didn't realize because you stopped seeing me as a person with my own life, my own worth, my own value beyond what I could provide for you. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you invited me to one of your social events? When was the last time you introduced me to your friends as someone you're proud of, rather than someone you're embarrassed by? She couldn't answer, because we both knew the truth. She had been ashamed of my modest lifestyle, my middle-class background, my lack of sophisticated connections. In her mind, I was a liability to her carefully constructed image. What are you going to do with the money? She asked finally. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to travel, support causes I believe in, spend time with people who value my company. I'm going to be the person I always wanted to be, but couldn't afford to be. And what about family? What about Emma and Michael? What about them? I love my grandchildren, and they'll always be welcome in my life. But their mother has made it clear that family relationships are conditional on convenience. That's not, I know I've been busy, but busy is one thing. Dismissive is another. You turned me into your unpaid employee rather than treating me like your mother. She was crying now, finally understanding the magnitude of what she had lost through her neglect and dismissal. But I wasn't finished yet. I'm hosting a dinner party next week, I continued. A formal event for some of my new friends. The mayor will be there, along with several business leaders and cultural figures. I paused, watching her face as she realized the implications. Brad's boss will be there too, and his boss's boss, the people who make decisions about partnerships and promotions at his firm. Her eyes widened. You know people from Brad's company? I know lots of people now. Wealth opens doors, creates opportunities, builds connections. All the things you and Brad have been working so hard to achieve through networking and social climbing. Could Brad and I be invited? There it was, the moment I had been building toward. My daughter, who had ignored me on Valentine's Day and treated me like hired help for months, was now asking for access to my social connections. I'm still deciding on the final guest list, I said. I want to make sure everyone there understands the value of genuine relationships, not just transactional ones. She understood exactly what I was saying. An invitation to my dinner party could transform her husband's career, but it would come at the cost of acknowledging how poorly she had treated me. Mom, I'm sorry, I really am. I know I've been a terrible daughter lately. Lately? For a while now. For too long. I got caught up in trying to fit into Brad's world, and I forgot about the world that actually matters. It was a start, but words were easy. I needed to see if she was truly willing to change her priorities, or if this was just another form of social climbing with me as the target. Actions matter more than apologies, I said. If you want to rebuild our relationship, it needs to be because you value me as your mother, not because I can help Brad's career. I do value you. I've just been lost, I guess. trying so hard to be someone I'm not that I forgot who I really am. Perhaps there was hope for us after all. But the real test would come at the dinner party, where she would have to choose between her image-conscious pride and genuine humility. The week leading up to my dinner party was transformative in ways I hadn't expected. My daughter began showing up regularly, not with requests for babysitting or demands for my time, but with genuine attempts to reconnect. She brought flowers from her garden, asked about my art purchases, and even suggested we take Emma and Michael to the Denver Art Museum together. "I realized I don't know anything about your interests anymore," she admitted during one of these visits. "When did you start loving art? When did you become interested in philanthropy? I feel like I've been living next to a stranger." "I've always loved these things," I replied gently. "I just never had the resources to pursue them before. And honestly, I didn't think you'd be interested in hearing about them." "Why wouldn't I be interested?" "Because you seemed more focused on appearances and status than on substance and personal growth." She winced at the accurate observation. I got caught up in Brad's world. All those wives competing over who had the most expensive handbag or the most exclusive vacation plans. I thought that's what success looked like. And now I'm watching my mother move in circles I've been desperately trying to break into, and she's doing it because people actually enjoy her company, not because she's trying to impress anyone. The day of the dinner party arrived with perfect spring weather. The caterers transformed my home into an elegant, entertaining space, with flowers from the city's most exclusive florist and a menu designed by a chef who typically worked only for Denver's elite. I had chosen my outfit carefully, a sophisticated black dress that was obviously expensive but not flashy, paired with some of my new jewelry. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman of substance and means who didn't need to prove anything to anyone. My daughter arrived an hour before the guests, wearing a dress I had never seen before. "It's new," she said, noticing my glance. "I wanted to look appropriate for tonight." "You look beautiful. But more importantly, are you prepared for what this evening might bring?" "What do you mean?" "These are serious people with real influence. They don't play games or engage in small talk about handbags and vacation homes. They discuss ideas, causes, genuine interests. Can you handle that?" She took a deep breath. "I want to try. I want to be someone you can be proud of again." The guests began arriving at 7 o'clock. Mayor Davidson came with his wife, followed by Dr. Hartwell and several other prominent cultural figures. Brad's ultimate boss, senior partner Margaret Chen, arrived with her husband, a federal judge. I watched my daughter carefully as she was introduced to these people. Instead of her usual social climbing tactics, name-dropping, mentioning expensive purchases, discussing exclusive events, she listened more than she spoke. She asked thoughtful questions about their work and interests. She was genuinely engaging rather than performing. Brad arrived fashionably late, clearly nervous about meeting his company's senior leadership in a social setting. I could see him calculating the political implications of every conversation, trying to figure out how to leverage these connections for his career advancement. "Patricia," Margaret Chen approached me during cocktails, "your daughter tells me she's been volunteering with the Children's Literacy Program at the library. That's wonderful work." I looked at my daughter in surprise. I hadn't known about any volunteer work. "I just started," my daughter said quietly. "Mom always emphasized the importance of giving back to the community. I realized I hadn't been following that example. It was a small thing, but it represented something larger. A return to the values I had tried to instill in her before she got caught up in social climbing and material accumulation." During dinner, the conversation flowed naturally among topics of substance. The mayor discussed upcoming cultural initiatives for the city. Dr. Hartwell talked about her foundation's work supporting education in underserved communities. Judge Chen shared insights about recent legal developments affecting business ethics. My daughter contributed thoughtfully to these conversations, revealing an intelligence and social consciousness I hadn't seen in years. She had always been smart, but somewhere along the way, she had started hiding that intelligence behind a facade of superficial interests. Brad, on the other hand, struggled to keep up. His attempts to steer conversations toward business networking fell flat. When he tried to impress Margaret Chen by mentioning his recent golf game with a client, she politely changed the subject back to the education initiative they had been discussing. "Your mother is quite remarkable," Margaret told my daughter as the evening wound down. She's already committed to funding 2 scholarships through our company's educational foundation. Has she? My daughter looked at me with new respect. Education has always been important to me, I said. I know what it's like to work multiple jobs to pay for a child's college tuition. The comment was directed at my daughter, who had the grace to look embarrassed. She was remembering all the sacrifices I had made for her education, sacrifices she had forgotten in her rush to climb social ladders. After the guests left, my daughter stayed behind to help clean up, though the caterers had handled most of it. "Thank you for including us tonight," she said. "I know I didn't deserve an invitation after how I've treated you. You're my daughter. You'll always be invited to be part of my life, but it has to be genuine, not transactional. I understand that now. Watching you tonight, seeing how people respect and enjoy your company, I realized that's what real success looks like. Not the performance I've been giving, but authentic relationships based on shared values." "What about Brad?" He seemed uncomfortable with the substantive conversations. She sighed. "Brad is a good man, but he's been so focused on climbing the corporate ladder that he's forgotten there are other measures of success." Tonight was an eye-opener for both of us. Over the following months, my daughter's transformation continued. She began joining me for cultural events, not because they would advance her social status, but because she genuinely enjoyed them. She increased her volunteer work and started bringing Emma and Michael to age-appropriate cultural activities. Most importantly, she stopped treating me like a convenience and started treating me like family. Our relationship became reciprocal. She offered support and companionship, not just requests for babysitting. The inheritance had given me financial freedom, but rebuilding my relationship with my daughter gave me something far more valuable: the family I had always wanted. Brad eventually left his high-pressure law firm to start a nonprofit legal clinic serving low-income families. The career change meant less money and status, but more purpose and fulfillment. Margaret Chen actually helped him with the transition, impressed by his wife's commitment to community service. Emma and Michael flourished with parents who were more present and grandparents who shared adventures with them. We took family trips to the Aspen House, but we also went camping in Colorado's national parks and volunteered together at local charities. 1 year later, as we celebrated Valentine's Day together with a quiet family dinner at my house, my daughter raised her wine glass. "To second chances," she said, "and to mothers who are wise enough to teach their children what really matters, even when those children are too stubborn to listen the first time." "To family," I replied, "and to love that's strong enough to survive mistakes and grow stronger through forgiveness." The $100 million had bought me a new life, but it was love and patience that had bought me back my daughter. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money, it's the wisdom to know that relationships are the only wealth that truly matters. As we sat around the table, laughing and sharing stories, I thought about my great-aunt Millicent and her final gift. She hadn't just left me money. She had given me the power to transform not just my own life, but the lives of everyone I loved. My daughter had ignored me on February 14th because she saw no value in my presence. By the next Valentine's Day, she had learned that value comes in many forms, and the most precious inheritance of all is a family that chooses to love and support each other through every season of life.